Fiasco and farce. Little victories against the police are always a buzz. Getting away, not getting caught. But chances are the police will get resentful against any little victories, and chances are they will come back again. And if they can't catch you, then they'll frame you. Especially if you're a cheeky little git and write stories about getting away with it and then send the stories into your friends and nick. Manus was out the back at the time trying to learn to juggle. Manus was at least half convinced he would never be able to juggle. He thought maybe the left-hand side of his brain was damaged. All the drugs he'd done, kickings he'd taken, or maybe just a defect at birth. But he tried. He was practicing with small stones, keeping two up with the right hand and then with the left hand. He was beginning to wonder if maybe he could do it, after all. Jean was standing beside him. She had one of her figure-hugging dresses on. She had a good figure. She was a great hustler, a great thief, and a great lover. She was also more than a little possessive and domineering. People had been calling all day looking for blims. Manus kept the blims stashed in the dirt between the cobblestones that covered the back entry. He kept larger amounts buried on waste ground not too far away, and every time he got more than 100 quid together, he would take that out too and bury it. But people were calling on top of each other, and Jean was hassling about something, so Manus actually had a couple of hundred on him when he saw Nuttall and a few other drug squad coming up the back entry. He had a blim of hash on him too. It wasn't much, enough for a joint or two. He put his hand in his pocket and took it out. It was so small it fit between his fingers. And there he was, stood in the back entry with his arms up in the air, surrounded by drug squad. He could have flicked the little blim out of his hand, and it was unlikely they would have seen it, but decided against it. He put his hand over his mouth and popped it in. Nuttall jumped him then and got him in a stranglehold, but it was too late, unless it swallowed. Apparently the cops had been all around the house that day and had picked up 12 people coming away from the squad. A few of them had been caught with blims, but none of them would admit that Manus had sold it to them. One of the few times he had ever refused to sell hash to someone had been that morning. He refused to sell it to someone who was physically and mentally handicapped. Manus didn't like to discriminate in this way, but he couldn't trust this fella and refused to sell him anything. Nick, who lived with Manus, had actually sold the fella the bike that he had crashed on when he received his injuries and felt in some way responsible, so he sold him some hash. This fella was the only one arrested that morning who did as the police told him and said Manus sold him the hash. Everyone from the squad was held for a few days, and when they were released, conditions of bail stated that none of them were to go near the squad, which had been bricked up by the council while they were in the cells. Nuttall produced a piece of hash which he said was Manus's. He told Manus that he should consider himself lucky that that's all he was getting framed with. They told Manus to leave town. They told him to go back to Paddyland. The court was its usual fiasco. Nuttall couldn't even frame him right. The so-called evidence got lost and then found later, but it had been labelled wrong. It was all fiasco and a farce.